Hi everyone, welcome to this top 5 video featuring advanced plants from our Tropica aquarium plants range. Before we talk about the actual individual species, I'd like to discuss what the advanced category means and why these plants are actually classed as advanced. You may already know Tropica have 3 categories: easy, medium and advanced. Easy basically means they're very easy to grow. They don't necessarily need CO2 injection. They can grow with lower levels of lighting and they don't need so much nutrients or maintenance. Medium category will definitely benefit massively from CO2 injection. Will need more light, more nutrients, and will take you a little bit more time to maintain. Finally, and the category we're going to discuss in more detail today, is the advanced category. These are generally quite difficult plants to grow unless you have the right equipment. So you'll need high levels of lighting, higher levels of nutrients, higher levels of circulation, and you'll generally take a lot more time to maintain and take care of these relatively challenging plants. You'll find a lot of plants in the advanced category are actually carpeting plants, and the reason for this is when you think about where a carpeting plant is in the aquarium, it's a lot lower. It's obviously right at the bottom of the aquarium usually, and therefore there's not as much light reaching the plant, so you'll need more light to penetrate through the water. Another consideration is that because of the nature of the plants being at the bottom of the aquarium, generally speaking, there are lower levels of circulation, and what that means is there's less opportunity for the CO2 to reach those plants. So generally you'll need high levels of circulation and higher levels of light. Be very mindful when you're wanting to grow advanced plants: more light, more nutrients, more CO2, more circulation. The first plant we're going to talk about in our advanced category is the absolutely beautiful stem plant Proserpinaca palustris Cuba, supplied in Tropica's 1-2 grow pots, grown in our state-of-the-art laboratories here in Denmark. It rewards you with the most beautiful orangey copper leaves under the right conditions. You'll need good levels of lighting, good levels of CO2, and good levels of nutrients and circulation. It's a relatively slow grower, but it can grow quite quickly once established, depending on your conditions. Just like most stem plants, relatively easy to maintain. You can trim them, replant. Sometimes you can get the plant to produce side shoots as well, although with this particular species, it doesn't tend to bush out as much as other easier stem plants, such as the rotalas. If you do want that intense copper colour, then do consider upgrading your lighting, but make sure when you do that, you balance the whole aquarium system out. You might need more CO2 and other nutrients and circulation as well. Now, when we're dealing with these advanced plants, we're dealing with lots of light, lots of nutrients, potentially lots of fast-growing aquarium plants. That results in more organic waste, and that organic waste needs to be diluted with water changes ideally. The next plant we're going to talk about is Riccardia chamedryfolia, an absolutely beautiful moss-like plant. It's actually a liverwort. It's not actually classed as a moss, although it does exhibit moss-like characteristics. The common name is Coral-pelia, and if you look very closely, it does kind of form these beautiful plating formations that do kind of remind us of coral growth. It grows attached to the wood or rocks and actually is a relatively slow grower, but once it gets established, it can actually be quite invasive. It does tend to take over other adjacent plants, so that's something to bear in mind. It can be relatively challenging to actually attach to your decor to start with. It's supplied in relatively small portions, and there are various different techniques that you can use. What I like to do is actually almost just try to wedge it into any kind of cracks or small areas where the Riccardia is naturally going to adhere to. As with the other advanced category plants, it will absolutely benefit from CO2 injection, arguably is essential. It does really well in higher levels of lighting as well, and it will reward you with much more compact and vibrant growth. Under lower levels of lighting, it tends to look a lot duller and maybe even go like a translucent or grey or kind of transparent colour. To maintain it, you can just simply trim away and siphon off any excess trimmings, otherwise they can transport around the aquarium, attach themselves elsewhere. So an absolutely beautiful liverwort. It's definitely one to consider if you have the right conditions. The next plant we're going to talk about is the absolutely beautiful Elatine hydropiper, used brilliantly here in this Iwagumi aquascape. It's a very small leafed, bright green plant, carpeting plant of course, relatively challenging. It does do better in slightly cooler temperatures, say 22, 23 degrees Celsius. It has a very, very fine root structure, so can be quite challenging to plant. You will need to use definitely aquascaping tweezers and an appropriate soil substrate, maybe the Tropica soil powder, and will reward you with the right conditions with the most beautiful carpet, as we can see here. It does remind us of Glossostigma elatinoides, which we'll talk about soon. It's very similar leaf shape, but a lot smaller, and requires similar conditions, although arguably is a little bit more challenging and slower growing than the Glossostigma. Feed it with a good quality liquid fertiliser such as Tropica specialised nutrition. Definitely give it enough light and CO2, and because it's a carpeting plant, we'll need higher levels of circulation to ensure those CO2 and nutrients reach the bottom of the aquarium. To maintain it, we can simply trim away excessive growth, and if the carpet becomes too thick and completely overtaking the scape, you can actually lift the entire carpet up, split up the healthy portions and then replant as desired. The next carpeting species we're going to talk about in an advanced category is the classic Glossostigma elatinoides, made very popular by the late great Takashi Amano. This is one of the all-time classic carpeting plants that we don't often see used that often in aquascaping these days, which is a shame. I absolutely love it. We've got it growing in here quite nicely. You can see it has gone a little bit leggy. Sometimes it does this with lower levels of lighting as it's trying to reach for the light. Other considerations could be circulation or lower CO2 levels. But even so, it does look absolutely stunning, rewards us with this beautiful bright green colour, and is a very fast grower, and so do bear this in mind. It will need trimming regularly, otherwise it can literally take over your whole aquascape. So give it a good lighting, good CO2 and nutrients. Rather than planting it in large bunches, which some people do, if you can actually individually separate the plantlets and plant those, then you'll get a better chance of it carpeting more tightly and more compactly, in my experience. The final plant we're going to talk about in our advanced category, top 5, is the beautiful moss, Fissidens fontanus. This is a very unique moss in the terms of it has these beautiful fronds, quite large relative to other mosses. It's quite slow growing, but as with a lot of mosses, once it's completely adapted to the underwater growth and your conditions, it can take over and give it several months or so, can form these beautiful, tight, compact bushes, which really reward you with this deep green colour, which is actually quite unique from a lot of other mosses. It will need probably a decent algae crew. It does tend to trap detritus because of the nature of the fronds and how they're formed, and it will definitely benefit from good levels of lighting and CO2 injection, and of course good circulation as well. As with other mosses, will respond very well to trimming, and this will promote more compact growth. Unlike some other moss species, Fissidens doesn't actually self-attach or self-adhere to your hardscape material. So you will need to either use some form of glue, maybe super glue, or tie it on with fishing line or cotton thread to get that moss established and formed over your decor. So that wraps it up for today's video, our top 5 advanced category plant species. I hope you really enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments what's your favourite out of the 5, or even What other advanced category species do you think we should feature in future videos? And do let us know any other ideas for top 5 videos. Finally, before I go, I want to just let you know about our amazing Tropica app. And if you wanted to find out more details about the plant species that we've discussed today, you can find them very easily on the Tropica app, available on all Android and iOS devices. If you do want to have your content featured on our social media channels, use the hashtag #MadeWithTropica and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and of course subscribe to us on YouTube at Tropica Aquarium Plants. Take care, and I'll see you on the next video.